Good evening, everyone. My name is Jory Fortson. I'm a program associate at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight in Newark, New Jersey for the 2023 Healthy Children and Families Grantee Summit. I'm so excited to be here, and I have the honor and pleasure of introducing you to Jennifer Nandu. She is the Managing Director of the Healthy Children and Families Strategic Portfolio at the Foundation, and she is going to give us some welcoming remarks. Jen.
Good evening. All right, I love that call and response. So I believe that every single baby born today can be part of the healthiest generation in this country. And I believe that we can do that because we can paint a world where each and every child, each and every family is valued simply because they exist. Not because of workforce production or deep-seated ways in which we value people only because of what they put out in this world, but because we can usher forward a new social contract that really holds people in their inherent worth and dignity. And I just wanted to start with that because I don't know that in 2018, when we last met together, we could have held a vision that aspirational and that big. But the world has shifted and cracked open spaces where we can demand a different type of reality and a new possible. I'm Jennifer Nandu, or Jen, and I'm the Managing Director of Healthy Children and Families, and we work to ensure that each and every child can be at their healthiest, that families can thrive because they have all the resources that they need. And we have done deep interrogation about what that means in terms of the way we partner, in terms of the way we support different causes, in terms of how we use our voice, and really in thinking about how we can be a better philanthropy. And that is what this is really about, showing up in a different way to reach a new possible. I actually am just going to be very quick, and I want to acknowledge a few people who brought this together. As I said, it's been 6 years since we've been in person of any kind, and we are deeply grateful to be doing this in RWJF's home state of New Jersey and in Newark in particular. You'll get to hear from our illustrious guests in just a second, but I want to give a huge and tremendous shout out to Jory Fortson, Program Associate, who is behind all of this and really has anchored the vision for this event. And we are so grateful to be able to move forward with her collectively. I want to thank MMS Education and team, and I always want to thank them for all the careful planning, logistics, and creating kind of spaces and containers where we can all come together. I want to thank the Newark Museum of Art for offering us this beautiful space. And second to last, but not last, I want to thank you, all for taking time. As I always say, you have a choice about where you want to be and when you want to be there. And we're glad that you made the choice to be with us over these next few days. It wouldn't be a team dedicated to healthy children and families without also thanking the caregivers who stayed behind, those who care and love, and who are maybe stepping in and creating space for you to be here. And so I just want to honor that. And acknowledge the care and love that we are getting as we sit here and have what has already been a delicious set of appetizers and meal tonight. And so with that, back to the summit and my introduction of the next speaker. We're so excited to be here in this summit. And tonight's theme is really about feeling and thinking about what it means to have presence, to feel the power of this collective is what I see, and to really just sit and ground in this adventure. So together that we're going to have over these next few days. And in doing so, we need to acknowledge where we've come from, our ancestors, and ground in the history that sort of holds us. And so we are so thrilled to be opening up this summit with the wisdom of one of the most important leaders in the Newark community, but I believe for New Jersey and the country. Junius Williams is an attorney, an educator, and the recently retired founding director of the Abbott Leadership Institute at Rutgers University, Newark. He works in the civil rights movement, and his work has been chronicled in the Civil Rights History Project, a collaborative initiative of the Library of Congress and the National Museum of African American History and Culture at the Smithsonian Institute. And in 2018, Mr. Williams was named the official Newark historian by Mayor Baraka. And so he is here to shed some light on the ancestors, their wisdom, and the shoulders that we stand on as we enter this conversation in this space. And I want to thank you so much for coming, Junius. Thank you.
Hello. I'm glad to be here. I got here a little before you, so I had a chance to sample all of the goodies that they have. They always have wonderful eats and beverages here at the Newark Museum of Art. I'm very happy to be a part of this gathering. From those of you around the country, I saw a badge that said, "We care." And so I think that's the kind of common denominator that we all have here today. I'm not going to speak long because they told me not to speak long, because I can speak long. You can't bring a trial attorney up here and expect them not to speak long unless they tell you don't speak long. So my job is to kind of set the stage for you. I know you're coming into town. This is your first event. You have come from all over the country. Anybody in here from Richmond, Virginia? Richmond, Virginia. Oh, that's good. That's where I grew up, in Richmond, Virginia. Armstrong High School, class of 19. But I've been in Newark for a longer time than I have been anywhere else on this earth, and I'm very happy to call this my home. So what kind of historical orientation can I give you to keep you awake and to keep you from caring about what I'm saying, because I know you want to eat, man, but you got the mayor to speak afterwards, so blame it on him if it goes too long. But what I'm going to do today is to tell you, they said, what is it about Newark that is so special to help you understand how you can get involved with support organizations in the neighborhood of health and health care? And so I said to myself, there's one thing that you ought to know about in the time that's been allotted. You ought to know about the medical school fight. You ought to know about the fight that had all the poetry and drama and brought all the folks together. And so I said, I'm going to spend my time telling you about that because that's kind of a portrait of how we got here today, how we have Ras Baraka as mayor. And I'm going to give you a little 15-minute thumbnail sketch of what happened. You see, at some point back in the 1960s, 1966 to be example, some people said, well, we want to have a medical school in Newark, and that medical school, we need 150 acres of land. 150 acres of land. There's only about 150 acres of land in Newark. But they said they had to have it. It had to be a medical school of golf course proportions, or they were going to go somewhere else. Well, the governor said, no, you're going to be in Newark, and we're going to get you 150 acres of land. But guess what? Y'all supposed to say what? Let's try that again. Guess what? The people said you can't have it. So that's how we came together with the greatest single black-led coalition of folks, non-gubernatorial, non-electoral coalition of all times. And that's the first hint. Because when you can get folks all the way from the NAACP and the Urban League all the way over to the Black Panthers, you got a coalition. You got a coalition. Now, at that time, I was just a small boy. I had come to Newark, and I was a part of a group called the Students for Democratic Society, local group, Newark Community Union Project. You might have heard of Tom Hayden. That's why I came to Newark. And so here I was. My role up to that point was to carry messages from one side of the room to the other at these tumultuous meetings that we had, sometimes way into the midnight hour. But when it came to this medical school, something happened that set all of us and got all of our attention, and it was the Newark Rebellion. Some people call it the riot. We call it the rebellion. Those of us who are enlightened and progressive enough to understand what that means, we call it a rebellion. So into the fray was put this whole concept of a 150-acre medical school because the people said, folks don't want that. And that's one of the reasons why they rioted. Well, there were other reasons, but we're not going to talk about all those other reasons. But certainly that was on people's agenda because people were tired of urban renewal. Newark at that time was the second most urban renewal city in the country. Norfolk, Virginia was the first. Everywhere you look, people were moving 2 and 3 times, and there was just nowhere else to put them. So people said, hell no, you can't have that. So eventually we got together. We had a negotiating team. I was co-chairman of that with a man named Harry Wheeler, who was co-chairman with me for that negotiating team. And we negotiated an agreement which said you can't have 150 acres, but you can have 60 acres. If we get 60 acres of land for housing, they have finally agreed. And we were able to do that because we had that unnamed brother with the brick standing with us at the negotiating table. Theoretically, of course. But they knew they had to do something that was extraordinary. And it was because people got together and people came to understand that we have to put aside our differences all the way from the Black Panthers, all the way to the NAACP. We got to put this together and make this thing work. So, to make a long story short, we got the 60 acres of housing. It was first housing was vacant land already cleared, urban renewal. Number two, we had the most advanced affirmative action program for construction in the country at that time. People talk about the Philadelphia plan, but that didn't work. The Newark plan worked. We had 600 men. They didn't think about putting the women in it. It wasn't my fault. Didn't put the women in there as construction workers at that time. But we trained them. They said, well, we can't find them. Well, you got to pay for us to train them and give them money while they're being trained. Couldn't get any better than that. And number three, we got the city to agree that that medical school, the state to agree that that medical school and the feds, all the way up to the president, that that medical school was going to have to take care of the health needs of the people of Newark. They had a hospital that was supposed to be designed for the most advanced cases. Heart transplants was the in thing then. All the other most recent advances in medicine, they were going to helicopter people in from the suburbs and take them out when they finished. But we said, no. We got people here with gunshots. We got people here with boils on there. You know what? We had a hospital here called Martland, and it was better known as Martland Meat Market, because that's what you did. When you went in, you were a human being, but when you came out, you were just ground meat. It was that bad. So we said, you're going to have to take care of the people's needs. And only because we had all the people who not only came together, but who had the knowledge. Second thing, if you remember about your organizing, you got to have the information. They thought we were going to come up there and have just a hearing like they do at the Board of Education now, where people come up and folks just start hollering and stuff. But no, we didn't want to do that. We said we're going to have our experts, and the experts came from within the community who had the knowledge base to say, we want this, that, and the other. And one of the things was the health council. The health council was to look over the shoulder of the medical school people to see that the health care needs of the people were met. So I'm finishing now, but I thought I would give you that story because sometimes those coalitions hold, sometimes they don't. The third lesson is that coalitions don't always hold up. A lot of people came to my house late at night and said, Junius, I want to get that land, and I got this group that we can do it. And I said, no, this is the people's project. We're going to have a group. We're going to have to group consensus on how that land is divided among nonprofits here in the city. So they got mad with me because I didn't go along with it, and they went off and started sending people to me. Well, Junior's got the land, go talk to him. So we had a lot of fights. But the thing we didn't fight about was the hospital and how it was supposed to work, because we had people who were well known, who were health advocates, and we listened to what they had to say, and that's how we interjected that into the mission of the what's now called the Rutgers Medical School. The hospital is a part of that. It's not just a teaching hospital, but it's a community care hospital. So in summary, the last thing that happened, this is the fourth lesson, these coalitions can change, and the coalitions can change, and this one morphed into another coalition which elected the first black mayor of Newark, Ken Gibson. Chief among those people who was involved in that, as a matter of fact, one of the leaders in something called Committee for Unified Newark was Mayor Ras Baraka's father, Emir Baraka. Some of you may know him as Leroy Jones. So his idea was to pull together all these people who were out there, who at some point had been fighting each other, who came together for the medical school fight, other things that coerce people to come together. We had that organization, and even though we didn't all agree on what thing was going on, what was going on at the Hakalu, as it was called, there was an opportunity for us to continue working together as a coalition, and we elected the first black mayor of Newark. Now, in my book, in my book called Unfinished Agenda, I tell all of these details. I tell all of these stories. Is that a shameless commercial from my book? Yes, it is. You can get it on Amazon. There's one of the things that one lesson that I want you to understand from that, and this is the fifth lesson that I'm giving you today. I realized that we could get along and do a lot better for everybody if the power in the suite joined with the power in the streets. The suites being City Hall, the streets being where we come from, I included myself in that. But it took a long time before that message got through to the mayor's office. Now, I helped develop 2 of those first black mayors. 2 of them came on my watch. I was the first campaign manager of the first one. We didn't get that message through to him. Second one came along, no. Third one came along, no. But it is this 4th mayor who understands that, and he's going to talk to you in a minute. I don't know if I'm supposed to introduce him or not, but I want to tell you a few things about him because he's my favorite mayor that we've had. I'm not just saying that because he's here, but he understands that concept, the power in the street, the power in the suite. He's probably going to talk to you about the anti-violence coalition that he brought together. He's going to talk to you about the police review board that is still up in the air because the police didn't want to have it and took it to court. And he's talked about and just had a celebration for the first guaranteed minimum income for the city of Newark. So it is with great pleasure that I turn it back to your hostess, who can then introduce Mayor Ras Baraka. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we give another round of applause for Mr. Williams? Thank you. And just to add a little bit about the Honorable Mayor Ras Baraka, he's a fellow Howard University Bison. I'd be remiss, HU. Ras Baraka is the 40th mayor of the city of Newark, and since taking office in 2014, he has been committed to a forward-thinking, progressive approach to governing and is recognized as a thought leader in the space of urban revitalization. So without further ado, please give a round of applause for the Honorable Mayor Ras Baraka.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to Newark. If you're not from here, if you are, welcome back to the Newark Museum. Actually, the best museum in this entire state of New Jersey. Most people don't get to see that, but it is true. You get an opportunity to be back here, please do that. I always give plugs for the museum. I came here as a child. My mother and father made me when I didn't want to come here as a child. And, I encourage other people's children and families to bring their children to this museum. Just want to thank RWJ, the foundation. I want to thank Healthy Children, Healthy Families, giving me the opportunity to address you guys. Coming to Newark is special. There's a lot of work happening in this city, not because we think that we are better than anybody else or we're trying to do these great things to be in newspapers and magazines. We do it out of necessity. We have no other choice to do these things, and we don't have the luxury of pessimism. So we have to be optimistic every single day and come up with solutions that other people, frankly, don't really have to think about as much or as heavy as we do. This morning there was an article that we did in the paper, an editorial that I did that talked about the guaranteed income and that we needed the legislatures to move next. We identified about 430 families in Newark and gave them about $6,000 for over a 2-year period and followed them and analyzed that data. And it was positive data, obviously, how it helped their well-being, helped their children, helped themselves pay rent, buy food, even improve their educational outcomes. This is something that needs to be expanded out throughout the state and the federal government. In fact, the child tax credit we know worked, and it actually brought kids out of poverty. It reduced child poverty. We noticed the thing that I can't imagine is that Congress could not get themselves organized enough to extend it so that we can continue to raise children out of child poverty. Two senators decided to go in a different direction, which to me is optimistic because we could have been 15 senators instead of 2. That's how I look at it. Remember, I don't have that luxury that most people have, which means that we have to work harder and we're closer to the end zone, means we in the red zone. We have to do something in order to make this a reality for children across the nation, and particularly children in New Jersey that I'm concerned about, and even more concerned about the children in Newark, because my family is in Newark. My friends' families are in Newark. My extended family is in Newark. And so I have to be concerned about Newark families. And I know we're supposed to have Q&A, but somebody asked me 2 days ago, what's the difference between me or the mayor of a city like Newark, or me specifically, and another mayor? What's the differences that we have? And I said, well, we have to do what other mayors do. We have to pick up the garbage. We have to make sure people's snow is removed. We have to tend the potholes. We have to do all of the things that other mayors have to do. But I also have to make sure kids stay alive, that they're not murdered on the way back and forth to school, that they have access to quality food, that they're not living off of the restaurant in front of their store or the local bodega or something, or food that they can't get access to that's healthy, right? I have to make sure that lead is not in their water, and the fact that they live in old homes, that lead is not in their homes and in the dust. Have to fight against environmental issues that are overwhelmingly stacked upon us in communities like Newark, because we live in old industrial cities, the second largest seaport in the city here in the city of Newark. So particulate matter in the air is high, so our children have asthma at higher rates than other children. Have to make sure that our women, when they go to the hospital to have babies, don't die, right? These are things that we have to figure out, right? We have to figure out ways to make equity a reality for families here who are making $35,000 a year as the average income, when the housing costs about $325,000, $350,000. So we have to create programs to make sure people can get homes through our land bank and through all kind of creative ideas like giving homes for $1 and all of this other kind of stuff. And people think, oh, you're doing these things, these kind of gimmicks. No, these are things that we must do to create a raft for people so they don't drown, overwhelmed by inequity, overwhelmed by economic impoverishment and all of the things that are systemically in their way, barriers that they didn't create, that existed before they were born, that they come into. So I have to figure out and be creative about how to move those. We have to change everybody's lead service line in the city, when the state told us it would take us 10 years to do so, and that we should really be concerned about giving out water and filters and changing the corrosion control. And maybe we could change the lead service lines in 10 years, right? My colleague in Chicago, they told him it would take him 50 years, right, to do the same thing. These kind of remedies that they give us are based on the idea that people in these communities' lives are not as important as everybody else's life. Why you wouldn't tell anybody else that they would have to take 10 to 50 years to get lead out of their water, right? And so I can't live with that. We had to figure out a plan, so we changed 23,000 lead service lines in less than 3 years. So, and forced the folks to hire Newark residents and have subcontractors who are black and brown from this community, who are now prime on projects across the state of New Jersey, who once had $300,000, $400,000 contracts, now get $2, $3, $4, $5 million contracts because they're the prime, because they started right here in Newark, fixing a problem that they did not create, but we made sure that they benefited from it, right? So, I mean, these are things that we do not because we want to get pats on our back or because we're looking for accolades, but in order for me to go to the supermarket in peace. My mother said your father was an ideologue. He was a philosopher, an activist. But when he went to the store, nobody asked him for a job. So that's the difference between you and him when we had this discussion. And as real as it can be, because I have to be look, the ideas have to be here, but we have to be as pragmatic as possible because we have to figure out a way to turn these things into real life ideas that people can eat and move around with every single day. That's why we need community-based organizations. I'll close there and open up, because we knew, as Junior's pointed out, that our arm doesn't reach as far as we think it does. Our communication ability is not as robust as we imagine it could be. The things that we want to be able to do for residents in the city, we fall short of that without the collaboration of community-based organizations who are embedded in the community and have been doing this work for decades. Our job is to collaborate with them and give them resources so they grow and expand and lift their work to higher levels. We learned this through COVID so desperately that we could not address the housing crisis. We could not address the specific issues that we had in our cities without our nonprofit organizations. So we gave people COVID tests and booster shots at the bus stops. We gave it to people in the supermarket parking lot. We did anything we could with the help of nonprofits and community-based organizations to reduce the deaths in our community, because housing is a problem, and Newark is a problem in the country, but it's a real problem in the city of Newark. You have families that live in 2-bedroom flats with 5 and 6 people in them who cannot social distance. So when they was telling people on the TV to go in their backyard or their basement, they was talking to everybody but us. So when I got on the internet and spoke to my folks, I had to have a different message. I had to play music and read poetry and do all kinds of things because we needed to lift people's spirits up and then give them the information at the same time, because they had no backyard to social distance in or no basement to go in, and that more than likely when they went home that they would get everybody sick because they went to work while all of us were social distancing. They drove the cabs and the buses and waited the tables that people came in and refused to wear a mask in. They did all of those things. They were the security, and they cleaned the buildings that nobody showed up to but them. They had to be there. They were our police officers, our nurses, all these folks in the street who went home and infected their families in places where housing was a problem. So as a result of that, we built Hope Villages, which is now a model in our state, where we took containers and made them into units and put people in those containers that were residents that did not have any addresses, and we rented out hotels and leased hotels so people could social distance in those places without having to go home and infect their families. These are things that we did because we had to. And that's the point that I'm trying to make here, right? And many Americans don't have to. But what kind of country are we creating where we only worry about the people who don't have to? There's an overwhelming amount of people who are in these communities and cities like Newark who have no choice. Our job is to make sure that they do have choices, because isn't that what democracy is about? And that we provide a pathway for healthy families and healthy children to be able to do that. So I'll stop there. I mean, because there's a lot to probably talk about that's going on in Newark, and I know I was instructed before I got up here.
Thank you. Can we please give a round of applause for Mayor Baraka? You really covered so much of what I was going to ask you in your remarks, but if you could leave this group of social change leaders with one hope that you have for us while we're here in Newark, what's one thing you hope we'll see or learn or experience?
I mean, some of the things that Junior's talk about, the spirit of these organizations, their commitment to the work that they're doing, and kind of collaboration that's happening, I think, in Newark, that is absent from many places. We are collaborating on all levels, up all the way down and across and wide, to make sure we get as many people involved and reach as far as we can go.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we please give one more round of applause for all of our speakers? Thank you so much.